I really like the fact that you humanized the illustrations here and there with little figures, people interacting with the buildings, just enough to bring some warmth and humor to the whole
You're
thing.
nice. I have put people in, first of all, because I think that the key thing about architecture is how we define the space around ourselves, and given
Mm,
that we are the people doing the defining, to leave people out, both in terms of scale and to a certain degree in terms of context, is a bit of a
mm,
pity. And also because there's a risk. You do a certain number of doorways, you're just doing more
mm.
doorways. You might as well put
Yes.
someone slightly different in each doorway. And I don't know why, I've always had a horror of the letter-set figure.
Yes. Yes.
The walking architect fellow going
Mm,
from one place to another,
mm.
and the kind of non-specific. I loathe the non-specific. I think that I think platitudes are the great enemy all the time, and you get a lot of platitudes in figures too. I mean, the one I like best is in a big Edwardian door, which is in an office in Covent Garden, and a fellow sitting there on his mobile phone with his cigarette, vanished from the office to smoke and talk to his moaning
Mm.
girlfriend. I like it because it's sort of supposed to say that architecture's all around you all the time, and you might not be thinking that the door you go and smoke and phone in is actually got all sorts of relevance and all sorts of features that are interesting. But it's also just to say, the doorway's there, the doorway's where you are, it's all around you. And I think
Yes.
that that's...
Yes.
So if there's a reason for it to say, I mean, it's just to keep people's attention and hopefully make them laugh a bit from time to time.
Now, at the back of the book, you have a gazetteer in which you pick out a number of buildings for people to visit, region by region in the country. And I wondered, how difficult was that to come up with your shortlist? It must have been quite a challenge to boil that down.
I think that the boiling down is the challenge, not the finding. And that, ours is
Mm,
a very built-on country, and
mm,
even the less populated areas, the Celtic fringes,
mm,
are in Scotland particularly has some of the most important architecture in Britain. So there's no
mm,
great difficulty in finding them. The matter is of boiling them down. There are also areas that do have specific strengths. I mean, the great industrial towns of the north of England are very, very good for Victorian and Edwardian building. They're not particularly,
mm.
they're not as good for some of the other periods. But I didn't find it too difficult. What I wanted to do was to make it representative so that you could see something of each period in each area. And that kind of
Mm.
double entry bookkeeping wasn't too difficult to achieve. It was just a
Yes.
matter of making sure that it did work and you didn't find that there was a great big classical hole in the middle of Wales, as it
Mm.
were.
Yes.
But it was quite possible to fulfill all areas.
I wondered if there were any discoveries that you made as a result of writing this book, buildings you hadn't seen before, or buildings you encountered in reality that you had a new view of as a result of drawing them, or something that really sort of surprised you.
Yes, oh, definitely. There are buildings that you think you know. I mean, for example, I had driven past Castle Rising in Norfolk, where I have sometimes lived hundreds of times without ever going to visit it. And
Mm.
I thought, well, I need a large Norman building, and here's one I can get to quite easily. And it made me go and look at it and go and draw it properly, and that was hugely exciting. In fact, several buildings, which I knew from photographs quite well, do look very, very different. When I was about 12, my father, who's a theatre designer, had set me a holiday project of making a scale model of the front of San Miniato in Florence. And I'd spent a week or so carefully cutting out all the little bits of cardboard for every arch and every arcade, and then painting all the marble inlaid front of the building. And when I first went there, when I was about 16 with a trip from school, I was astonished to find that there was a huge part of the building that wasn't black and white. It never occurred to me the whole thing wasn't going to be black and
Mm.
white and stripy. And one
Mm.
does get sometimes a very, very two-dimensional idea. Photography is quite a challenging medium to use
Yes.
for buildings because it's marvelous and it's quick and it's easy and it gives you a lot of detail. But of course, you can't go and look more closely when you're looking at a photograph. It's much easier if you're looking at the real thing. You can look around the corner
Yes.
and see what that
Mm.
meant. It's also, of course, the great thing about drawing the details is you leave stuff out. Drawing is a
Yes.
marvelously editable medium, whereas photography is beset with
Yes.
the sign that says Summerfield or no entry or CCTV
Yes.
in operation in
Mm.
this area. But if you're sitting and drawing, you can peel away those accretions and layers of addition
Mm.
that you don't want, and you can, although you are to a degree schematizing the view,
Yes.
you can put over what you want to do much more easily.
Mm. in the book, you do advocate that your readers should try to draw some of the architecture they see, and I thought that was probably because you haven't seen my rendition of the Scissor Arch at Wells Cathedral, which is not a thing of beauty or elegance like your
I
drawing.
don't think it. I mean, I'm sure it's absolutely lovely, but I don't think it needs to be a thing of beauty or of elegance. In fact, I think it can be completely wrong and still be valuable. I think that what drawing does is to make you sit in front of something for 20 minutes, not 2 minutes. That is, in itself, of huge value. And secondly, it makes you parse the building. It makes you break it down to its component parts. And just the process of doing that is a very, very easy way of understanding the building, of understanding the animation of a building. So I think that even the most kind of shaky, blunt pencil on the back of the photograph that you happen to have in your briefcase at the time is often a way of resolving some of the things. Not resolving, it's often a way of clarifying what you're looking at in your mind. It's just a way of getting your head around a building. And I think that, so yes, I definitely encourage anybody and everybody, particularly those very bad at doing it, to do it as much as possible.
To persist.